for another half time because twice the half time is one half
It's one half
off.
too many.
I
It's one.
don't even know. Anyway, I didn't have time to prepare that metaphor, but welcome back because we're here to have a fun discussion with Vice President and Chief Diversity Officer Dustin Hurst about the so far three-part special. Oh, it's so special they had to add a fourth part, which
Yep.
is airing tonight. But let's just talk about. Oh, sorry, my nose is a little runny. Let's just talk about the KTVB investigative series about the chaos causing destructive force of the Idaho Freedom Foundation.
Right.
Drinking water.
So when you first saw there was a promo of this thing, Wayne, that was put out. I think it was put out on Monday, and it had Jim Jones and it had like this ominous music. What was your thought about what was coming for IFF and Idaho Freedom Action, our sister organization?
I thought that they had some new look. On the high end, I thought they must have some new angle, some new thing they're going to try to bring out that would, expose us dirty bastards for who we are and what we've been doing. And I didn't know what it would be, but I figured they must have had something new and something really dramatic. But my real expectation was that they were going to regurgitate the same stuff that they've been saying for the last 13 years about us.
Yeah.
And it turned out it was the latter. Ding,
Yes,
ding, ding.
exactly.
And
Like,
not only that,
sorry,
but it makes for, I mean, I mean, I could actually take some of those videos and put them. I'd feel perfectly comfortable putting them on our website.
you, we sent out the videos to all of our donor list today.
Oh,
Uh,
did you? Okay, I didn't know
our
that.
email list because they were so good. They were
They
so
were.
good.
What
And
what did they say? We're an influential organization that legislators listen to. Okay.
yeah, like I said on this on Steph Lucas Live last night, I was like, do they have video of me like sniffing cocaine or something that I don't
Oh,
know about? Like, was that a thing? Because there was nothing new that they could
see,
really bring up on us,
yeah,
right?
and since I don't think you sniff cocaine, I think you snort it.
Oh,
Um,
whoops. See, that's
that
just
wasn't what they weren't gonna find that on you. But yeah, I mean, you would think that they had something that was really really compelling, but it was really the same old stuff. And I started thinking, is it sweeps week, or they're looking for something to get attention for and recognition in the Idaho Press Club Awards next year, and this was it. I don't know. It was really weird, and it really, it's the usual suspects. And that was the other thing too, by the way. Morgan Romero. So it's Morgan Romero and Brian Holmes, who are doing the series together.
yeah.
And when Morgan put her tweet up that said, she put a tweet out that said, we've spoken to dozens of legislators and elected officials and former elected officials, I think, something like that. And I'm like, gosh, wow. But what have there's been like, I don't know, five
Five,
legislators.
5 or 6, I think. I mean, you've
Yeah,
got
that
Intro, Cheney, Yamamoto, Kaufman, Geddes, Jim Jones. And I think that was about it, right?
yeah, I don't remember anybody else. Yeah, so I think that's probably right. Yeah, that's not dozens. That's barely half a dozen. I mean,
Common Core math.
so okay, so I anyway, so it really is not meeting the expectations that you'd have on the high end. But like I said, my feeling about the media. Remember, I'm a former journalist, went to journalism school and everything, and it's not really it's terrible journalism, and it validates the reason why we don't talk to the news media. It's not just because we. And I kind of wonder, do you ever think to yourself, Dustin, gosh, that's a horrible policy Wayne has in place? I know you must have thought that when I first mentioned it. You just didn't say anything. I'm like, I don't think we should talk to the
No,
media
no.
anymore.
I was split personality on that, where it's like, I like my job. I like talking to the media and making fun of them. But then I also saw that, hey, the practical matter is that they're never going to give us a fair shake on anything ever. And that's exactly what would have happened here. A lot of people we've had donors and we've had supporters call in and say, well, why didn't you talk to them? It's like the story was already written in their heads before they even ever reached out to us. They had a conclusion, and they just needed us to give them some token quotes just so that they could fake fairness. And we're not going to participate in that. No way.
That's 100% correct, and it legitimizes what they're doing, which is being a mouthpiece for the left. But the other thing too is, agreeing to do these interviews and participating in the interviews, it takes time. You don't just show up for an interview. You should. Some people don't do this, but you should prep for the interview.
Yep.
And you should, be ready for what the questions are going to be, and then you have to actually do the interview. And you're talking a commitment that's hours. And for us, with the media requests we've had over the last few years, it's hours out of your week that you could be spent doing what your donors are asking you to do, which is promote freedom and liberty and to stop socialism's advancement.
Yep.
So I don't think we lost anything by not participating in the interviews. Do you?
No, not a thing. In fact, I think that all of the conservatives, there was not a single conservative voice that was featured. And it gave me a little heartburn at first as somebody who's been through PR classes, but then I realized it shows exactly how little trust conservatives have in the media. I mean, we all know who Brian Holmes is. He's a good human being. Don't go out and harass the guy, but he's a terrible journalist, as you brought up last night.
He's barely a journalist. I mean, in fact, if anybody who watched today's program would have noted that when they got done with part 3 of their expose on the Idaho Freedom Foundation, Brian went into a short monologue about how terrible it is that we won't talk to him. And by the way, go ahead.
What I tweeted about that too, and I noticed that there needs to be some introspection here with the media. Instead of getting mad at the people who won't talk to you, Brian, maybe ask, why won't they talk to you? Is it because they're scared of your questions? No, Wayne and I know how to handle questions. Heather Scott knows how to. Sure as hell, Ron Nate knows how to answer your questions. It's that we don't trust that you will be a fair broker in any of this, and nobody trusts you.
Yeah, that's all we want. We're not looking for puff pieces. I was a journalist for almost 20 years. You were a journalist too, Dustin. And you know what it takes. It's hard work. Yeah. But in your endeavor to be a journalist, you endeavor to be fair. And we've just not seen a great deal of fairness out of the media. In fact, if we want to talk about just from the get-go. By the way, sorry, I keep forgetting things, and I want to make sure I don't forget this piece. It's not that we didn't agree to talk to Brian. What we said was, if we can sit down and do an hour-long video and have it unedited, we will talk to you in that format. But we don't want you taking our quotes and cutting them up into your story to validate your narrative. And they are the ones who refused to do that. They were more interested in showmanship than they were in actual journalism. Because if they were really interested in the answers that we'd have, they would agree to that in a heartbeat, because they want to know the truth, right? They want to ascertain the truth. This is what they call reckless disregard for the truth, is what I said I was very specific with those words in my email to Brian Holmes today when he was asking us to comment on installment 4. And the reason why I use that word, reckless disregard for the truth, is the standard for libel. They're not interested in the truth. They don't want to hear from us. They just want to write their story and defame us in order to fit their narrative. And that's evidenced by the fact that Brian several times referred to the critical race theory and social justice debate last year as a false narrative.
And he used the air quote things too. It was really good. Air quotes.
Yeah, he didn't say that there's disagreement on it. If he said he's been to our website, he said he looked and he counted how many videos we've done on critical race theory, which was interesting. So He apparently has been there long enough to realize that we have a 50-page report on critical social justice in the K-12 education system. I know you talked with Steph Lucas about this last night, but
Yeah.
we've got reports on college degree programs that fail students, and guess what? They're steeped into social justice. We've got reports on the University of Idaho and Boise State University. These aren't things we just made up.
Yeah.
These are legitimate. These are our concerns, and he can say that our concerns are wrong, or rather that I mean, actually, what he could say, yeah, he could feel that our concerns are wrong. He can believe that in his heart, but as a journalist, he has an obligation to report that we have those concerns and that the University of Idaho says those concerns aren't legitimate. He didn't do that. Instead, what he did was he said it's a false narrative concocted by the Freedom Foundation that claims that there's CRT and social justice taking place in our K through college system are simply not true. And that does a disservice to viewers.
Did you get the sense that he was offended that IFF persuaded lawmakers to cut education funding in higher education? Because I got that sense that it was almost like, and again, I don't want to make this a personal attack on the guy, but he came from the point that from the perspective that it was offensive that anybody anywhere would ever ask for cuts to education funding. Did you get that sense from his piece?
Yes, yes, and particularly also, not only was it offensive that we would strive to cut those programs, but also that we created a false narrative chaos scenario that resulted in this unfortunate, unnecessary act taking place. It wasn't enough that we cut the programs; it was that we said mean, false things that got to him. And it's just not true. I mean, and even if it were true, he still has an obligation to report the facts as they exist, not give his opinion or tilt his coverage to a particular viewpoint, and that's what he's done.
One thing that I think that so he left out a bunch of stuff in episode one, I guess I'll call it, of
Episode
this
one.
episode one of this hit
I
piece
hope it's
series.
like the first season. I hope another season ordered up by
Well,
Paramount.
in about 2 years when it's primary election season again, this will happen again. It really is.
Yeah, it
It
will.
really is
It'll
the
be like
law.
it's brand new. Like no one had the idea to ever talk about it before. Some reporter was going to be like, "I should do a series on the Idaho Freedom Foundation," and they'll think it's so clever and new, and they'll be like, "Oh, I bet they get criticized for lobbying too much. We're going to write about that. They're probably in violation of IRS rules. They're blurring the lines. It's a gray area." Holy cow!
Every 2 years,
Every two
that
years, every two
happens.
years, like it's brand spanking new, like it's never been talked about before.
But the one thing that Brian left out of his piece was, he mentioned that Tammy Nichols and Dorothy Moon and Heather Scott all talked about critical race theory stuff. He left out that Wendy Horman lent her voice to that debate. She was one of the leading lawmakers on House Bill 377, the anti-CRT bill, which is actually kind of weak. He left that out conveniently, and moderate Republicans voted for that. I think it was on a party line vote. If I think Fred
I
Wood
think so.
probably
I
one of the
think so.
Democrats. But
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of
interesting.
details that he left out. I mean, he also left out the fact that bill really didn't do that much, and so I mean, it wasn't exactly something that we were championing. So his premise was even wrong. I think on House Bill 377, did we rate it a 0 or a 1? I don't think it was.
I think it was a +1. It wasn't like we
Was
gave it a really high rating. It wasn't like plus 27 and
No,
a half.
we were not bragging about that bill at all, and the media reported it as banning critical race theory in Idaho schools, which isn't true. It lets them continue to do critical race theory, but they can't compel a student to do it at the cost of their schooling or their grades or whatever. So that's not a fantastic bill.
Yeah. And on House Bill 226, which was the supplemental appropriation for the $6 million grant, he talked to the IDAEYC folks, the Idaho Association for the Education of Young Kids, and he just took their word for it that they weren't embracing critical race theory when, you could have gone to the Wayback Machine and said, here are the resources that they
Here,
actually.
here are the web page was completely dead, and we talked about it, so it's not a mystery, it's not a surprise, not a secret to anybody. They could have done the same thing that we did and find the documents that we did, and bring it to legislators' attention. He refused to even acknowledge that. Instead, he basically said that the story was, we created a controversy out of thin air to kill the pre-kindergarten grant, and that's just absolute nonsense. It's really it's I don't this guy either is completely biased. I'm going to let you guess. He's either completely biased or he's just a lousy journalist. I mean, really, I don't even know. That's not even journalism.
Yeah,
Um, and you can kind of see where he is from the moment he opens his mouth on the first part, where he says, when the Senate President pro tem says something concerns him, you should pay attention, or words to that effect.
yeah,
So all you have to be is the Senate President pro tem, and you should pay attention. I mean, let's replace that with, oh, I don't know, Donald Trump. When President Trump says something, it's important, you should pay attention.
yeah, yeah,
Wow. I mean, he wouldn't have given the same deference to the president of the United States.
yeah.
Does he give the same deference to
Janice
the?
McGeehan.
Sure.
Yeah, the lieutenant governor.
When the
If I'm not
lieutenant governor
mistaken,
has the lieutenant governor said she had a task force on the thing.
right? He spent the last year making fun of Janice McGeehan and her
Yeah.
task force.
When the lieutenant governor creates a task force to study critical race theory, it's important to pay attention.
Yeah.
Brian, is that your story? No,
So
that is not Brian's story.
Yeah, no, I want to move on to a couple of things that were brought up by Chuck Winder. We'll process all the points here. I know it's a little bit later where you are, but I want to go through some of these points. If that's
I am
okay.
enjoying myself. You have no idea how much fun this is for me.
I've been grinning ear to ear since 5:00 yesterday.
Me too. I've been reveling, and it's been amazing.
Yeah, this did not do what they thought it was going to do.
No.
Okay, so Chuck Winder, Wayne, I feel like I need to ask to see your phone, but do you regularly text lawmakers and threaten them with consequences if they don't vote with the Freedom Foundation and the Freedom Index? Is that something you do?
That never happened. Never happened. And that's fun on several levels. Okay, first of all, I haven't even been in the Capitol building except for one time. I walked through the Capitol yesterday because I was walking from my doctor's office, and it was really cold out, and I just wanted to warm up and use the bathroom. And so I was really passing through. I saw some legislators, they saw me. So I don't want to say I've not been in the Capitol at all this session, but that's the only time I've been in the Capitol this session. Now, Fred and Anna and you and Nick Lost, you're over there a lot more, of course. So it's not like we're not there. Funnily enough, in Morgan's second episode, if you freeze frame at about the 5-minute 30-second mark, you'll see Fred Birnbaum walk by as she's interviewing legislators about IFF's influence. That is so funny. But anyway, this whole notion that lobbyists shouldn't be texting legislators. Lobbyists don't text legislators? Come on, Chuck. Give me a break. Really? Everybody saw that and thought, that's the dumbest thing anybody has ever said in elected office in Idaho. I don't even know if there's a comparison. It's wrong for lobbyists to text legislators. Oh, okay, Chuck.
Well, and I want to break that down a little bit, because I actually took it a little differently. And correct me if I'm wrong, but I think what he was talking about there too was, we send out as so I want to be very clear here. Fred would want me to be very clear and detailed. We have a 501c3 that does the research, the education, the think tankery stuff. And we have a 501c4 that does the voter education, the constituent education stuff. We send out text messages regularly because politicians lie all the time. So what I think he was actually talking about those text messages that we send out. We sent out, I
Oh,
think,
that I
yeah,
thought he was talking about. He was talking about. Maybe I misunderstood, but I thought he was talking about in committee. Legislators are getting text messages from IFF staffers telling them
I
about a
think
bill or to vote a certain way.
I think there were two. I think that
Okay.
he wasn't clear, but I think that he was really pissed off by the text messages we send out too. I think he was talking about both,
Well, maybe you're right. Maybe,
and if he was talking about the IFA text, okay, like it's our job to communicate with
it's
constituents and let them know that politicians don't always tell the truth. Chuck, sorry.
absolutely, and the other thing is there's this thing that we have. It's kind of interesting. You've heard of it. I don't know if Chuck Winder has heard of it, but it's called the First Amendment.
What?
And shockingly enough, if you read it, it's been interpreted to mean that everybody has a right to free speech.
Wait a second.
And I've done a little bit more research on it, and I've understood that that right doesn't come from the government, it comes from God. So Chuck Winder doesn't have the right to tell us that we're not allowed to communicate with legislators or with constituents or with anybody that we damn well please.
So
The
I want to bring up something else he said that I found completely bogus, but I see a lot of IFF because I kind of, try to keep it running smoothly in the back end and not always perfectly. But Chuck Winder said that we change ratings during committee hearings. Wayne, has that ever happened?
Not that I'm aware of, no.
Yeah,
Now,
I
listen,
see it.
I would tell you that we have changed ratings
Absolutely.
because, and everybody knows this, we have an open door policy to any legislator, lobbyist, citizen, whatever, who reads one of our bill analyses and has a disagreement with it, and we go back and actually reread our metrics. And if there's some new understanding, sometimes there's a nuance that we miss, and we go and we fix those. That happens maybe 3 times a year.
Yep.
And to put that in perspective, there's no organization in the state of Idaho that looks at more bills in the legislature than we do. And people might say, "Come on, Wayne, you're crazy. That's not true. Legislators must." No, we look at bills that don't pass both bodies. So in other words, this bill that gets introduced, maybe there's not a hearing on it. A bill passes the House, doesn't get a hearing in the Senate, and so on. We look at more bills than anyone else. And so I anticipate, because we are not robots and we are not perfect, we are mere mortals. If you prick us, we will bleed. You will
If you say
find
so.
it's true that I have not pricked Dustin to be sure that he will bleed, but we are human and we do make mistakes and we correct those mistakes as we see them. So there are times when a bill rating will change, and the error rate is about 1%.
Yep,
But
it
like I said,
happens.
about three bills a year, and we fix those. But that's not us going and oh, Ron Nate's supporting this bill. We better do something about it. Interestingly enough, we don't even look at the practice at IFF is you look at the bill first and you read the bill first and you rate based on just the bill. You look at the SOP next to make sure the SOP is consistent with the bill. And the bill sponsor doesn't matter. There are
Yep.
many bills that we've rated negatively. I'll give you an example. Chad Christensen has a bill. I don't remember what
Yes.
it does, but I know he has. Do you remember that bill?
It's isn't it the mandatory minimums bill this
Yeah,
year?
it's mandatory. That's right. Chad Christensen has that bill, and it's a negative rating on the Freedom Index. That's just that's a bad bill. I'm sorry.
We don't play favorites. It's not a thing we
And
do.
by the way, it's not a function of, and I said that wrong. It's not about, it is a bad bill, but it's not necessarily about, is it a bad bill? It's simply about, does it do these things according to the Freedom Index?
Yep.
So you might say, oh, it's really good policy to create a government database of everybody who pays, who has a homeowner's exemption, and create a system where you investigate everybody who applies for that homeowner's exemption. But that is an expansion of government. It may be a good practice, but it's an expansion of government. So that's why we count it the way we do, so that
Absolutely.
people understand that. So we try to be very, very accurate with the ratings, and so that we get the correct result and people get the correct policy information. But there's no changing ratings swiftly to back up legislators, who are our friends or something like that. And there's no trading ratings for votes. I
Yep.
can't even do that. I mean, there's no people want to negotiate with us. Oh, if you do this, if you rate this bill this way, we'll give you this. We just don't do that. I contemplated doing that once, by the way, and I instantly regret it. I actually did. That was last year. I'll tell you the story sometime. But but no, we just don't do that. It is simply, here's what the ratings metrics say, and how that all plays into the total analysis.
So today's part 3 kind of got into the election angle, and I want to kind of dive into that for just a second. The Freedom Index plays big into elections because people like it. They always call us for as a resource because people are busy. They don't have time to sit in the Capitol like we do and understand bills and understand lawmakers' voting patterns. How does the Freedom Index actually play into elections, Wayne? Do we use it to, and this is a loaded question. I know the answer to this, but I want you to explain it. Do we use it to beat up candidates and to endorse candidates and to get the people elected that we want elected? How does
Nope.
that work?
It's just there as an informational resource, and the idea is, people can. And there's a reason why. Remember this. There's a reason why the leftists hate Ron Nate and Chad Christensen and Priscilla Giddings and Heather Scott, Dorothy Moon, and so on. It's because we've made a convenient tool for them to know who to hate. If you just look at one
I
or two bills that, yeah, I mean, if you
I
look
didn't
at
think about it like that. Yeah, that's true. That's true.
yeah, if you're looking, if you're a liberal and you want to know who votes the most liberally, it's reliable. Same as it is if you want to know who the most conservative people are. It's
Right.
very reliable. Middle of the road people, you know where they are. It's extremely reliable, and it otherwise wouldn't be a target. The left would kind of know that. Ron Nate's a fiscal conservative, but they wouldn't know just to the degree how much. Remember, there's no website you go to except for ours that has somebody's complete voting record.
Yep.
And so they go there and they see that and they're able to go, oh, okay, here's who I like, here's who I don't like. And that's just a tool for people to be more educated. I don't see anything wrong with that at all.
Now, if I understood Morgan Romero's point today with when she was talking with Jim Jones, the people who score at the top of the index are our lackeys, and they do our bidding. That's correct, right?
No, no, not even close. I mean, and it's interesting too because, um, but I don't know why. It's funny how that is like a concern. It's like these people are doing their bidding, but it's not newsworthy that a special interest group can write a check to a politician and that politician refused to hear a certain bill, and no one goes, "Oh my gosh, he's doing their bidding or she's doing their bidding." That's fascinating to me. What you're seeing are legislators who um, share our values. It's as simple as that. That's all it is. These legislators share our values. Are there some out there who, maybe look at the index and maybe it sways them a little bit more than others, perhaps, but that's okay because what happens at the legislature is, and you know this, right? That the special interest groups show up, and every bill that has ever been brought before any legislature since time immemorial will have somebody who loves that bill, right? There's no one who says, "Here's this bill, it's terrible, let's all pass this." That just doesn't happen. Every bill has fans, and they always get to hear the plus side. The industry. We'll look at, Dustin Manwaring came in here a little bit ago, and he says, "Well, the dairy industry showed up. They want the CAFO bill." Okay, well, then they got the CAFO bill because they showed up. So what we do is we provide a different perspective. It's unique, in that it simply represents a philosophy, and that philosophy is freedom. So we
Now,
don't we don't our special we if we're our we're lobbyists and our client is freedom.
I, what struck me, Wayne, throughout the piece, throughout the 3-part series, and I think we're going to miss part 4 if we don't wrap up in like 30. I think it's at 10 o'clock tonight, but
We have time. We have time.
we have time. What struck me was how often they said, well, these groups do the exact same thing, but IFF does this, which is,
Right.
you saw that in part 1 where they said, all these groups have scorecards, but so does IFF. And there's this, did you notice that, how it's like IFF is somehow more evil because they have a scorecard just like IACI and the ACLU and the cities and all? Did you notice that?
Yeah, well, all that was really interesting on so many levels. I mean, didn't you find it strange that one of the questions you would ask if you're Brian or Morgan would be, well, why is IFF's scorecard different for you? And that never really, because they acknowledged they had it, but they never really got into this. Do you remember them getting into why is IFF's scorecard?
No.
I mean, somebody, I think Chuck Winder said, "Oh, the problem with theirs is most people don't do the scorecard while the session's going on.
Oh yeah.
You find out afterwards um, what their opinion was on the bill. That's okay. First of all, that's stupid because shouldn't people ordinarily, anybody, have the right to go and contact their legislators and say, hey, here's my opinion on this bill, or is the democracy, in quotation marks, that they love so much, one in which the voters contact their legislators after the fact? Oh, here's how I wanted you to vote. You didn't guess that? Oh, too bad.
Well,
I thought we're supposed to petition our legislators for grievances.
absolutely. And I'd say that if we did it that way, ACU does it that way, and they are the gold standard. And there's comparisons there, which they didn't bring up, which I thought was also fascinating. But if we did that, if we did our scoring after the legislative session, Wayne, without a doubt in your heart that we would be accused of cherry picking bills to help lawmakers that we like and hurting people that we don't like.
Absolutely, and it's also the reason why we do all the bills, because
Yeah.
it means necessarily that you get a good representation. When somebody says, "Oh, my Freedom Index score is bad because of this one bill that I voted against or voted for,"
Yeah.
that's simply not true. It's a pattern of behavior that you're seeing. There are folks that voted for the -8 scored Patient Act a few years ago who still scored in the high 80s in the Freedom Index. So it just demonstrates to you that here's the extent of the problem. Here's the extent of the leftism that you see in these folks who come back home and talk about how conservative they are. It brings all that out. But I mean, go ahead. I'm sorry, you were going to say something.
No, go ahead. I have a different thought. My ADHD was running wild there.
Yeah, no, I was. I mean, the other part of it is that's really fascinating to me is Chuck Winder would have you believe that he doesn't know what IACI is going to score their bills on, because when you're a lobbying organization, you have a habit of letting legislators know what bills you're concerned about. And with IACI, I don't know if they still do this or not, but they used to have a thing called the green sheet. So anytime there was a bill that was important to IACI that they were going to take into consideration in their scoring and in their evaluation of lawmakers, you'd get a little piece of paper and it would have the information about the bill that they were getting ready to vote on. That still happens.
Right.
So it's not like we're the only people over there who work at the legislature who let legislators know where they are on legislation. Maybe it's different because we do it for more bills. I don't know.
I don't know. And I think let me self-gloss here for a second. I think it's better. We're better at reading the legislation, understanding it, and getting it out to people. We are better at communicating with voters than other groups that do scorecards, and it makes people uncomfortable.
Yeah, but the big thing though is I just have to say this is important, hard work. And the reason why it's important is because we're measuring and we're looking for something different that's considered sacred to our national being, which is freedom. And I say this a lot for some reason. I've been saying it a lot, but freedom is everything. And freedom is even more precious when you see how easily it can be stolen from you. And the purpose of the index is to measure it. It's not to call. It really doesn't exist to, for election purposes. It exists for the purpose of helping people understand how each and every year you're being robbed of your liberty in various ways, and that it has an effect on people that causes them to take electoral action. To me, that's a natural consequence of any interaction in the political world. But for us, there's a calling to do this work so that we can prevent America from becoming truly more socialist than it already is.
Yeah, absolutely. I want to shift gears real quick and share with you something that I noticed. The In Chuck Winder's interview, he said something that I found absolutely astonishing and fascinating. He said, and this was the headline that they used on one of the articles that KTVB used, which is "Don't tell people how to vote." And again, your point is, we have the right to communicate with our lawmakers, but my sense is that Chuck Winder said that because he's offended that we are asking people not to fall in line with leadership. If he had continued that sentence with what I think he was really thinking, I don't know this obviously, but I think Chuck Winder was wanting to say, we tell people how to vote. You've seen in several instances in the Capitol this year, Chuck Winder and Scott Bedke have literally told people how to vote. It is expected of you to vote with your caucus on certain procedural votes or on certain, we saw it in the Senate with the tax cut bill, Christy Zitto. What happened to Christy Zitto when she didn't vote with leadership and with her caucus on the grocery tax amendment? She was ostracized and highlighted. They're offended that people are telling people how to vote. We're not telling people how to vote. We're saying, here's some really good ideas. You should probably support them. And they're saying, you should vote this way because, there will be penalties if you don't. That was an interesting take for me.
Yeah, that is really interesting, and so disingenuous. It's like, oh, your vote is your vote. All you have is your vote, and oh, by the way, you're going to vote this particular way because we're in leadership and we command you. And if you don't do it, then we're going to ostracize you or write a caucus newsletter about how terrible you are. I mean, seriously, that's really messed up. But it kind of reminds me also of so kind of going back to the Power of the Freedom Index. So some years ago, Scott Bedke decided on his own that he was going to stop the House scoreboard from lighting up during the vote. Do you remember that?
Yes, I do.
And he just did it one day. It was like we walked in there, and he would they'd unlock the machine, the court, and the members cast their votes, and the scoreboard didn't light up until after everybody had cast their votes and the vote was recorded. And Scott, I actually liked that, by the way, because I thought, well, that means you really have to own your vote, and I liked it even more because Scott said to me, "Now, Wayne, I've done this. How about you not reveal your analysis on each bill until after the vote?" And I'm like, no, that's not going to happen. And it really, it just kind of shows you that there are different power vectors in the Capitol, and everybody has them. And sometimes it's as simple as we're going to have a machine that lights up when you vote, and you get to look at what your friends are doing. That's a power vector.
It is.
Leadership is a power vector. Chairmen who have control over what bills get heard and what bills don't get heard. Telling members that they have to vote a certain way, or they die, or whatever. They don't die, but they get put out to pasture, I guess, or they get to be made the chairman of the sanitation committee. But okay, a power vector is the Freedom Index. It's something, and why is that? It's because people can depend on it for its accuracy and validity. If we just made stuff up all the time and you couldn't depend on it, and it was just something that was based on something arbitrary like friendships or pet interests, people would stop paying attention to it. It has value.
Right. Well, and I think that comes back to our point, which is leadership. A lot of people, lobbyists, leadership, some chairmen, I mean, they're kind of leadership. They're just upset that people are paying attention to the index and asking lawmakers to stick to their principles. It's upsetting those power vectors that have been in place for decades, and they're uncomfortable with it. They really are.
It is a very, very different universe. I remember when agency bills always passed. I remember you showed up at the legislature and the very first thing you did was work on agency bills. An agency bill never, ever, ever failed, really. I mean, it was rare. Budget bills never failed.
Never.
The work that we didn't even talk about the budget index or the education index. Those are also two very powerful tools as well. What you've noticed from the spending index. Morgan, if you're watching this, here's a news tip. There's a thing called the budget index, and ever since the budget index became a thing, more budget bills are getting defeated on the floor than ever have. It used to be, bill passes JFAC and it became law. It even says that on JFAC's website still. But it's not true. Now you'll have, it's normal for, a handful of bills to fail. And I think, frankly, it's because people are looking at the spending index and they're going, "Oh my gosh, this bill grows this government in some way, or this bill functions in a way that I don't like or disagree with." But it's another powerful thing.
So
maybe save that for the next election cycle.
Oh my gosh. As your comms guy, I should note that it's actually the Idaho Spending Index. So it's idahospendingindex.com if you want to go
I'm
there.
so sorry. I remember it used to be called, I'm so sorry. Yes, it's the spending index.
It's good. It's good. So I want to move on to how IFF and IFA collude to break all of the election laws that have ever been written and all the disclosure laws. That's true, right? That's a thing, because that's how Morgan made it sound, is that we have this group and we couldn't break the law with this one, so we had to form this other group so that we could break the law with that one. It was the most confusing piece.
Yeah, what was really funny about that is when she was doing the intro to that package, I wondered if she was looking at your bingo card, because she checked I think she hit them all, didn't she? There was gray area, IRS, blurred lines.
Bully. I think they had bully, intimidate, harass.
It was all of them. It was all the words. I'm like, oh my gosh. But yeah, again, as if this is unusual, and even she acknowledged in her package that there are all these other groups, by the way, that are doing it. So get outraged about the Freedom Foundation. They're doing this thing that is really unusual. They've got a C3 and a C4 organization. They even share staff. Oh, and by the way, Planned Parenthood, the Conservation League, ACLU, they all do it too. But now let's move on to the source of our irritation, the Freedom Foundation. It's like, my gosh. See, back in the day, you would call that not news. Or if you did it, you would say, wait a minute, this is really interesting. The Freedom Foundation is doing this. I wonder what degree these other organizations are also having an impact on public policy. And maybe you'd highlight the Freedom Foundation because we're better at it or whatever, but you would at least, the story would be about the fact that you have these other organizations that do the same thing. And by the way, she also did the whole dark money thing, which I think was also on the bingo card.
That was on the bingo card.
Yeah, and again, go ask Planned Parenthood for their donor list. They're not going to give it to you.
Yeah. So the one thing that was funny about that to me was how dishonest it was with mentioning that. And I think you remember, Wayne, was it the 2016 election? IACI ran the most dishonest smear campaign against Lenore Hardy Barrett that we have ever seen in the state. And they accuse us of having false narratives with our text messages and our videos and stuff like that. They cast, I remember IACI in their election cycle communications cast Lenore Hardy Barrett as pro-wolf. Lenore Hardy Barrett would strangle a wolf with her bare hands if she could, right? Yep. They would. And we never heard boo about that, not a peep. But yet we have all this evidence that CRT is happening and that votes are being cast. We have the vote records. We have loads of evidence, and somehow we are still using a false narrative to intimidate and harass and bully. It's the most amazing thing. It's unbelievable.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to blame, Morgan for not covering that story when
Oh,
it
sure,
happened all
sure.
those years ago. But I mean, and really, I guess your larger point is that these other organizations have engaged in these activities, but they, get a pass, and we're the evil ones.
Yeah.
Um, I think it's a lack of journalistic institutional knowledge. I mean, otherwise, why would she go and interview Roy Guerin as part of her package on, government ethical behavior? I mean, no offense to Roy, but he was involved in the University of Idaho place scandal 20 years ago, and his star has been somewhat tarnished since then. He's still lobbying and still doing things at the Capitol, but the point is that that's not the person you would go to if you understood that, if you knew that, um, and, and 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 just other things like little details like that where they just. I mean, I'm even um, offended by the notion that they must have had that graphic up for like 10 or 15 seconds that said that you had been fined $250 by the Secretary of State's office. I mean, I was like, really? Okay.
I paid $250, and let's
It
be
was
clear.
like,
I made a mistake. I forgot to register because we were doing grassroots. It wasn't like I was going out and lobbying lawmakers directly. I wasn't meeting with them. I wasn't asking them for votes. I wasn't doing any of that. What I was doing was sending out text messages and emails to people saying, "Hey, get engaged. Here's what your lawmakers are doing." And I just forgot to register IFA. And as an IFA lobbyist, it was all on me. And I paid the fine and I moved on. But that was like the biggest scandal since like Wienergate, right? It was terrible. Like like
it was really something, to see that I mean, look, it was. I would argue about whether, the law is construed in a manner that is reasonable, given that you were registered as a lobbyist. You were registered as Idaho Freedom Foundation lobbyist.
right.
It was just that we, for the first time ever, started running ads from Idaho Freedom Action during the legislative session, and we just, okay, didn't consider that it was as a separate entity running those ads. Not a big deal. Made into a big deal, but not a big deal.
Well, speaking of things that were made into a big deal that are not a big deal, that was basically summing up all three parts. The final, like one of the final shots there was, oh my gosh, the board of directors, they
Yeah,
donate to political candidates. That was
yeah, yeah.
insane.
Yeah, they donate to political candidates, and I did love that I got a mention for having donated to Brian Smith. So I'm like, yes,
It's
yes,
like, of
wait.
course. It's like if they had said, it's kind of like this. It's like there's a fat guy. I'll take that. He eats at McDonald's. Like that's what fat guys do, right? It's like, okay, these people are politically interested. They're
Yeah,
active in their communities. They're active in their boards. Of course, they're going to donate. They donate
yeah,
to us.
they're,
They're going
yeah,
to donate to candidates.
they're only interested in funding IFF. They have no interest in funding candidates. Imagine that. We specifically looked for people on our board who had no interest in politics whatsoever. Oh, you donate to a candidate? Sorry, you can't have you on here. I mean, if they, and by the way, if Morgan were really, this is the next story, right? Um,
I'll give her any ideas.
guess which member of the IFF board is a member of Congress? Former member of the IFF board. Which member of the IFF board? Former member of the IFF board is a member of Congress.
Yeah, I know, right? And
Yeah, I
and
know.
it's gonna be
And
it's gonna be
and guess who on the IFF board is running for Congress? I don't even know if she knows that. Just like, okay.
well, I'm surprised they didn't like tie in, create this great, because we've got Lieutenant Governor races, Priscilla Giddings, Dorothy Moon's running for Secretary of State, Raul
Yeah,
Labrador running for AG, Janice McGeehan, all people that we have not supported because that's not what we do, but have been friendly with freedom in the past. I'm surprised she didn't actually go there and suggest that there's like this great conspiracy
Yeah.
takeover
Well,
that ISF
she
is orchestrating.
she would have if she found all my campaign contributions for the last several months, because I think I've given to everybody except for Raul, and I told Raul I was going to do that here in a couple days. So I mean that's it's coming.
I feel like we need to send out a press release about that or something, because Morgan's going to write a story about Wayne
I
Hoffman
just
doing
yeah,
something like straight up.
and this is why I don't do press releases anymore. But it's going to be a story. That's going to be a story. It'll also be a story. Brent Regan gave money to Mary Souza. I gave money to Dorothy Moon. I'm sure somebody will make something out of that too. And I mean, and it's sad because these journalists could do so much. They
Yeah.
really could, if they really wanted to have an impact on things and do some really good, awesome journalism. They would talk about. That's why one of the reasons why I got tired of covering races as a journalist, because you write one story about a candidate and then that candidate gets elected, and then you don't talk about him again, and you might write a story about their campaign finance and what their campaign signs look like, maybe a debate story, but that's about it.
Right.
I mean, it's so razor thin and boring, that it makes you wonder why people pay attention to the news at all.
Yeah, absolutely. So I have to go to the gym, but before I do, I want a couple questions. Apparently, again, there's a part 4 to this, and I will share
There's a
that tomorrow.
purple.
But there's a part 4, and apparently it's about Take Back Idaho. Wayne, using your secret crystal ball powers, what is the story about Take Back Idaho going to be tonight?
Oh, it's going to be how, these former state Republican elected officials who she will identify as conservatives, just because she did that, by the way, with Chuck Winder. Did you notice that? She said conservative Senate President pro tem Chuck Winder. Well, where did she get the idea that he's a conservative? Was it
Good
because he's a
question.
Republican? I'd like to know what data she used to give him that label.
Yeah,
It's probably
absolutely.
because he voted pro-choice. But anyway, it's going to be conservative former elected officials hate on the Idaho Freedom Foundation. They formed a PAC called Take Back Idaho from extremists, from these chaos mongers who preach false narratives, led by the Idaho Freedom Foundation.
Oh, by the way, that reminds me. I'm sorry, we got to jump back for 1 second. Part 3. Did you notice all of the complaints that were filed with the Secretary of State's office were filed by one guy? Did you see
No, I
that?
didn't. No, I didn't.
Okay,
I
so
didn't even know there were all those complaints. Who were they filed by?
it was Travis Oler. If you go look
Oh,
at
that's right. I thought he just filed one complaint. He did 5 complaints.
no, it looks like you look at the paperwork that they put up on the screen, and it shows Oler. Like at least 3 of them were by him. At least
Oh, I
3,
didn't notice that.
and they didn't mention that, weirdly enough. It's like one
Yeah,
guy has an axe to grind with us. Weird, Morgan. You could have mentioned that.
yeah. Who knew? And the same could be said for all the other people that they've interviewed. I mean, why does Greg Cheney have an axe to grind? What could he possibly have that would make him upset with us? By the way, Greg and I get along, but we're obviously on other sides of the political fence, and that's okay. But there's a reason why he says the things he says the way he says them. The same thing is true for Jim Jones. The same thing is true for um, Bruce Newcomb. I mean,
Bob Geddes,
Bob
definitely.
Geddes. I mean, Geddes. I'm gonna have to write about Geddes because Geddes is a really interesting one. He started out as a conservative, and then by the time he was done, do you remember the
Is that like
the
Coach
first?
Otter?
Do you remember the very first pork report?
Yeah, of course.
So the very first pork report, because years ago, right? It was more
Way
than a
back.
decade ago.
Yep.
There was a section when we did a press conference unveiling the pork report,
Mhm.
and Bob Geddes was in the room, and he was very upset with the fact that we pointed out that state legislators still get paid even though they put substitutes in. And he was very upset that we pointed out there was a thing called what we call the politician pension payoff.
Yep. He
He was
wasn't
very
very
upset that we
upset
made a
about
big deal about the fact that you get to leave a state elected office and be legislative office and have your pension go up astronomically.
that. Yep.
And then a couple of years later, what was Bob Geddes doing?
Taking a pension
Working,
payoff is
work,
amazing.
work, working in the state government. Yeah, I don't know if he ever got to the payoff point, but he did.
Oh,
He did
he did.
definitely.
Oh,
Did
I know
he?
he
Okay.
did. Absolutely.
Because
Absolutely.
he was at the tax commission, then he went somewhere else. But anyway,
Was there.
the point is, you know what their problem is, and you're not gonna hear about that tonight because Morgan's gonna take everything they have to say at face value, and and then we'll have to talk about it again, how she got things wrong or how she left things out. But
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. Final thoughts on this, Wayne. Anything else that we left out that we didn't cover?
oh goodness, I don't know. I feel like I'm going to remember something after the fact, and I hate that because there was just so much stuff. It was interesting how much they relied on Melissa Wintrow and other lefty Republicans to make their case. I was actually really pleased that there were no conservatives that consented to an interview. That was
Yes,
really nice.
it was.
And yeah, so it was honestly great PR for us because
So
it shows that we are an effective organization, and I have no regrets having not talked to them,
yeah.
none whatsoever.
So you don't know this, but I actually asked Bosie on our staff to send them cookies today. We sent cookies to Brian Holmes and Morgan just to say thanks because it really was that good. This piece did not. I said it before. It did not accomplish what they thought it was going to do. They thought it was going to ruin us and stuff. We have, if you read the comments on Facebook, we've received emails saying, hey, I actually didn't know about your organization and what you do looks pretty cool. And if KTVB is hating on you, you're definitely on the right track. We've received dozens of messages like that.
No kidding.
So we have people have really come out of the woodwork. I've had just in the last 3 hours, I've had, I think 5 people say, hey, we're sending you checks by mail. So again, that's why we sent cookies over to Brian and Morgan just to say thanks for the positive exposure because it was fantastic.
I mean,
I was worried.
I have no words. Make sure you download those videos, somewhere because I don't know if they're probably going to delete them at some point. They might be so embarrassed by it because it just didn't do what they thought it was going to do. And I thought it was really funny too how the folks on the left on Twitter, because I'm on Twitter a little bit, they were like, "Oh, T minus 30 minutes until the broadcast," and they're like really looking forward to it, like it was this thing that was, my time was up because of this great investigative work.
Yeah. So again, I made this point on Steph Lucas Live last night. Guys, for the leftists who thought that was going to ruin us, go read. There's a story that Betsy Russell wrote like 6 years ago in an election year, and the title is Idaho Freedom Foundation's charitable status scrutinized. Now, the players are different, the bills are different, but it's the exact same story almost to the T. It's the same garbage every year that they just regurgitate, and go read it. It's shockingly similar. So
let me break a little news because I'm hoping that maybe Brian and Morgan are watching this as we get to 10 o'clock Mountain Time and almost midnight where I am because I'm just enjoying this so much. But we were audited by the IRS. I said that on Twitter, but we were audited. I don't know if it was because Carrie Scheid or whomever else filed a complaint. No idea. But we were audited, and the IRS said we complied with the audit, of course, and we gave them. They asked for banking records and expenditure records and all these things that you would ask for. They asked for copies of things that we posted on our website and things that we published, just everything under the sun. And the IRS wrote us a letter last year, and it said, we've concluded the audit, and you're good to go to continue being a 501c3 public charity. Now, I don't talk about that. Why? Because I know the media is going to say, "Oh, give us a copy of the letter," and I don't want to.
Yeah,
I don't want to. I'm done. I'm done placating them. I'm done going and acquiescing to what they want. They're just
Wayne, that if we gave them a copy of the letter, that it would that the story about it would appear on page like Z97.
Without question. or they will misconstrue the auditor's comments to say that we were sanctioned or something. I don't even know. I have no idea, because they would figure out a way to twist it or bury it or do something really nefarious with it, because they've proven that's what they would do. So there's simply no point. And so when I talk to legislators, here's more news for Morgan and Brian if they're watching. I've told the chairman of the state Republican Party they should stop participating in the public TV and other commercial TV debates.
Yes.
Why are they constantly? Why shouldn't the members of the Republican Party, the candidates for office in a primary, go to a debate where the questions are asked by Betsy Russell, Melissa Davlin, and the latest whomever who showed up that day from KTVB?
It'll be interesting to see if Idaho Capital Sun gets a seat, because that is
Oh,
they're declared leftists. They are
you,
a leftist.
they are. Yes, they're definitely going to be. They've got it. There's an army of them now. There's the Capital Sun, Idaho Ed News. Uh, there's the whole Adams network that Betsy does. They all share the same stories, and so you bet. And so I told Tom Luna that they should not participate, and then I've told state legislators that they should, and other people running for office, if you're a conservative, don't participate in editorial board meetings, don't participate in the debates, and don't answer media questions, because they're not on your side, and you're not going to get any benefit from doing it.
Wait a
Zero,
second. Wait a
none.
second. Did you just say that you talked to lawmakers, Wayne?
Oh
That
wait, yes, I guess
that's
I was caught.
scandalous as
Oops.
hell, man. Did you? And I'm sure you issued some threats while you were talking to them too,
I
right?
was I was I was I was bullying them, I think is the word you're looking for. Bullying.
And speaking of which, just so we're clear, the reason we did extremely extreme bingo is because we knew how this was going to play out, and we wanted to
Yep.
show them and have the evidence that this was going to be the words that they were going to use and the slurs that they were going to sling. And by the way,
Was it possible to win bingo? Did somebody win?
yes, we've had a couple winners, and we'll announce those Monday or Tuesday of next week. But it was possible to win because like you said, Wayne, in that final segment, when they started talking about IFA, they used all of the words, like it was like rapid fire. And I don't know if Morgan did that on purpose, because we sent her a bingo card, right?
Yeah, see, she
Uh,
showed it on Twitter. Do you think she did it? What is your guess? Do you
I
think
think
she did it on purpose?
I really
I
do.
think she did. I think she did too. It's funny. It's just hilarious.
Yeah, so we knew how this was going to go, and we wanted to show the absurdity of all of it, and make it a little bit fun, because election years can get a little tense. We would just want to have some fun with it. So thanks to everybody who played. We will share winners next week, and we'll send you. I still don't know what the prize is going to be, but it's going to be something fun. We'll come up with something good. So.
I just have to tell you, this has been fun. And for those, I mean, all I've gotten have been, I'm nothing but positive emails, phone calls, text messages. I had a donor who called me and said, I just watched the part 2 of the series, and I'm going to write you a really big check. And and it's not. I mean, no offense to the leftists who were hoping for a different kind of result, but the people who support us are very seriously interested in preserving America, and they see the important role that we play to that end. One that's been missing for a very, very long time, and I know the media will never get it, and that's okay, because I know our supporters do.
Yep. And it's funny, these things keep backfiring. 2 weeks ago, it was Mike Satz and the Cry Bullies over at 97%. They tried to get our event with Corey DeAngelis
Yep.
canceled. So what did we do? We had an awesome event, really good turnout, and we raised, I think, a couple $1,000 off of that. Got a bunch of new donors who are ready to fight for freedom. We're growing our ranks, because these people don't understand that they don't understand. They're not in touch with the average everyday Idahoan who is fed up with the KTVB elites telling them what to think, and telling them that they should feel bad because they're conservative, or that they love God, or that they actually want to be free. Idahoans aren't putting up with this stuff, and we have seen a huge increase in our donor base, in our social media reach, our email list, because they're really upset.
Yep.
And you're going to keep seeing this, guys. Keep canceling us. Keep trying to cancel us. Keep exposing us, Brian.
Yes.
Because
Please,
yeah,
please. I really, really, I need to listen. We need attention. We need. I think you should keep investigating us. I would not leave us to our own devices.
you know what we
So
should do? You know what we should do? Let's call that donor that promised a really big check, Wayne, and let's see if we could get them to donate enough so that we could buy a weekly investigation by KTVB.
well, they've got that thing called Report for America. That's that one where
Yes.
they embed these lefty reporters into different newsrooms all over the country. It's really quite nefarious. But we
Yes.
should do the same thing. We can set up a special fund or a special program, and we'll just embed Idaho Freedom Foundation, Idaho Freedom Action in Morgan and Brian Holmes's heads.
Okay. So I think what we've got here, Heath Drusen. I don't know if that's how you pronounce his last name. Heath, if you are watching, we have a job for you because you're one of these guys, right?
He is. Yes.
Yeah, he was brought here on like the guns grant or whatever, and he's
Yep.
a gun grabbing journalist. We want to come up with a fellowship for you to work with KTVB and report on the Idaho Freedom Foundation.
There you go. There you go.
This is great. I bet. Oh, I'm so thrilled.
Here's one final thing, and then we got to go because we got to get ready for the part 4 breaking. By the way, the other thing that I thought was really interesting is last night,
Yeah.
last night, 10 o'clock, midnight for me here in Florida. Last night, the breaking news was what?
Ukraine.
Right. Russia's invading Ukraine, and then Channel 7 led with Russia invades Ukraine, but first, Idaho Freedom Foundation. And I'm like, really?
And again,
Did that happen?
If we were like bombing like shelters or like puppy shelters or whatever, like that's one thing. Like lead with that, but like IFF has too much influence.
It's just incredible.
It's insane.
Never in my wildest dreams, if you'd asked me in 2008 when we were coming up with the Freedom Foundation that we would be the top of the newscast before the biggest international news of the decade, I don't know. I would have said, no, that can't be. I was prepared because I was like, okay, I think I told you earlier, I met here at the hotel. I ordered room service. I had a big salad and chips and salsa. And I figured, well, it's going to be at least 15 minutes before they get to the story because, Russia and Ukraine. I waited 20 seconds and they were on it. Amazing. Journalism has really, really good. Listen, remember, Mark Twain said there's the people who read the paper, those folks are misinformed, and the people who don't read the paper are uninformed. So you know which one you are.
Yep. And before we close out, again, I'm heading to the gym in a second to hit the punching bag, which is my release during the session these days. But I would be remiss if I didn't say, if you want to become a donor and join the ranks of the people who annoy Brian Holmes and Morgan Romero, IdahoFreedom.org/donate. Really easy to donate on there, and you get our material. You'll get exclusive briefings, all that stuff. We're actually coming up with some swag that I haven't told Wayne about. I keep doing that. I should work on that, but we're doing a lot of really cool stuff, and most importantly, we're winning battles for freedom.
We also have exclusive meetups with not meetups, but what do you call it? Zoom programs with elected officials, policy analysts, just stuff that you don't get anywhere else. So that's exclusive to our donors.
Yeah, and we're winning. We're going to keep winning. We're having an impact across the nation thanks to Anna Miller and her educational research. The fight to save America starts here, and we want you to be a part of it. So IdahoFreedom.org/donate. or you can send us a check. We got 802 West Bannock, Suite 405. Or I mean, if you want to donate Bitcoin or whatever, we can do whatever. But we'd love to have you on the team. We'd love to meet you. We'd love to hear from you. And if you have any questions about how we conduct our business or what we do, why we do it, feel free to give me a call. 208-505-1185 is my actual cell phone number. More than happy to talk with you, because we want you to join the ranks with us. Even if all you do is come stuff envelopes, we want to meet you. We want to hear your story, because we want to save Idaho and we want to do it with you. So, Wayne, final thoughts.
Thank you. Thank you to everybody out there. Thank you to our team. We have, one of the reasons why I'm a blessed man. Everywhere I go, people say, wow, Freedom Foundation is doing such awesome work. And they're not talking about me necessarily. I'm the president, but we have such good people behind us. You, Dustin, Allie, Bosie, Anna, Caitlin. Now I have to name everybody. Nicholas.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but Parrish, yeah, we just have. Angela. We forgot Angela. New to us. We're a growing team with a really people who are dedicated to the cause. And so I did say Allie, right? Yes.
You did. And
okay,
I think
good.
if you hadn't, she would have cut off your mic because
she would have killed. Yeah, I know. But anyway, we have amazing people, and we have amazing donors. And the last 13 years, we've been able to do something really incredible, and we couldn't do it without those Idahoans, mainly Idahoans, by the way.
95%, by the way.
95% of our money comes from Idahoans, contrary to what you've heard. So we really depend on just ordinary folks out there who love their country and want to see it for their kids and grandkids.
Absolutely. Cool.
This is fun. We'll 14 minutes and counting to the next episode, and we'll talk to you again soon, right?
I will say we will do another one of these in 2024. We will be back doing this.
We will. We might come back just to do this again tomorrow, because who knows? I don't know. This was fun, though. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah. Thanks, Wayne. And
thanks, everybody.
Sleep, buddy.
All right. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.